Om 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 Bhurabhuvah Svah Tatsavitoravarinyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskar, my dear friends. This is third video on the mind and its relationship with the real self. Mind is the most important tool for the real self to carry out various activities in the world. Mind is very powerful. As we know, our real self is infinite. Our Atma is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, and mind is originated from the Atma. So, part of infinity is also infinity. So, as Atma is having infinite powers, equally our mind is also having infinite powers. Mind cannot be controlled just by any methods, but mind can be diverted back to its source, that is Atma, and that is the only way mind can be controlled. When mind is moving towards the outside, it is having negative power. But when the mind is diverted towards the Atma, it is having positive power and it is pure. And when it reaches the spiritual heart, it becomes Atma itself. So, for all the spiritual aspirants, knowledge of mind is very, very important because we are thinking, we are doing all our mental work with the help of mind and ego. All our senses, they are working with the help of mind. Mind, ego, and all our senses, they are receiving their respective power from the Atma. Only this fact is to be known to us. So, knowing about the mind is most essential part of our spiritual aspirations and spiritual process. So, mind is mysterious. Mysteries of mind are unknown. Nothing is more mysterious than the Om Om Om. So, mysteries of mind are not easy to be found out and known. So, nothing is more mysterious than the mind. This mystery subsumes all other mysteries. A happy mind creates heaven here and now, while an unhappy mind creates hell wherever it goes. When the mind is friendly, the whole world becomes a friend, but a mind filled with animosity creates enemies everywhere. According to yoga, the mind is intrinsically pure like a flawless crystal. It is endowed with limitless potential. The mind mirrors the beauty and grandeur of the highest divinity. The divine within us is ever enlightened. Illumination is its intrinsic nature. When the mind is still and clear, the inner divinity automatically enlightens our whole being. This is called freedom from the bondage of ignorance. When the mind is unsteady and unclear, darkness casts its spell on us. This is called being engulfed by the darkness of ignorance. The mind is our most powerful faculty. Mastery over the mind enables us to master the material world. No other creature has a mind with such powers of linear thinking. Our retentive power has no match. The indomitable will intrinsic to our mind knows no limit. The mind's power of imagination opens the door to limitless inventions, and yet the same mind is also the cause of bondage. How is this possible? The reason is simple. The mind stands at the junction of the inner and outer worlds. Consciousness uses the mind as an instrument to explore the vast field of matter and energy and the world consisting of them. If the mind is clear and stable, our understanding of reality will be correct. If it is confused and disturbed, our understanding will be distorted and confused. The mind's ability to create bondage and grant liberation arises from its unique quality of identifying itself with the object it perceives. The mind assumes the exact shape and form of the object being perceived. It becomes whatever it perceives. The mind is perceptive when it is clear. Its perception is stable when it is steady, when it is not contaminated by its own inner impurities. Its perception is correct. The mind is the tool the soul uses to see itself and to see the world and to experience itself and to experience the world. The divine being within us can rest in its natural abode only when the mind is no longer in turmoil. Philosophically, it is true that our core being, our soul, is pure and divine, and that peace and bliss are its intrinsic nature. But as a practical matter, when the soul is accompanied by a disturbed mind, it loses its self awareness. Once embodied, it must use the mind as a tool to experience its own inherent attributes. If this tool is contaminated, then the soul has no chance to experience its own nature. Instead, it helplessly experiences only what the mind presents to it. That's why this pure, divine, ever perfect soul finds itself in bondage and craves liberation. We must cultivate a clear, calm, and concentrated mind, for it is only this kind of mind that will enable us to understand what is right and what is wrong, what is healthy and what is unhealthy, what is good and what is bad. Ultimately, what is to be desired and what is to be avoided. As soon as the mind becomes clear, calm, and well focused, it recovers its discerning power and becomes perceptive. It regains trust in itself and gathers its courage to move inward, making a commitment to free itself from its self created disturbances and distractions leads it even further inward. The mind becomes one pointed. This one pointed focus enables it to see the contents hidden deep within, and because the mind is able to see these contents clearly, they begin to lose their binding powers. Spiritual practices are designed to make our mind still and crystal clear. Thereafter, the light of our core being passes through this crystal clear mind unobstructed. Our perception of the world becomes clear and free from distortion. We come to realize that material objects are neither good nor bad, neither pleasant nor unpleasant, but neutral. We realize that it is our attitude towards them that makes them appear either good or bad. Once this realization dawns, the mind finds no reason to be agitated. We are now free to be active in the world while remaining fully established within. A clear, calm, one pointed, friendly mind puts all the treasures of the world at our disposal, while a dense, agitated, scattered, confused, and unfriendly mind robs us of our most fundamental privilege, our intrinsic joy and luminosity. That's why unveiling the mystery of the mind and attaining mystery over it is the most auspicious and fulfilling activity we can undertake. For man, mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the sense objects is the cause of liberation. Om, Om, Om. Spirituality is a certain way of being. Spirituality does not mean any particular practice, it is a certain way of being. To get there, there are many things to do. This is like a garden in your house. If the soil, sunlight, or stem of a plant is in a certain way, it won't yield flowers. You have to do something. You have to take care of those things. So, if you cultivate your body, mind, emotions, and energies to a certain level of maturity, something else blossoms within you. That's what is spirituality. When your rational is an immature, it doubts everything. When your rational matures, it sees everything in a completely different light. Whenever any human being experiences something bigger than himself, the traditional way of looking at that is this is God. The whole idea of God is just that anything bigger than you. It could be a human being or an experience or some aspect of nature. But it is this spiritual, no, this is just life. When I say just life, I am not trying to dismiss it as a small thing. It is the greatest thing. Only when life becomes an overwhelming, powerful, blissful experience for you, you want to know what could have created this. If you want to know the process or the source of creation, the most intimate part of creation for you is your own body, is not it? There is a captive creator here, trapped within you. You should not miss him here. If you don't miss him here, if you know the source of creation within you, you are spiritual. Does belief in God make you spiritual? An atheist cannot be spiritual, but you must understand that even a theist cannot be spiritual because an atheist and a theist are not different. One believes there is God, another believes there is no God. Both of them are believing something that they do not know. You are not sincere enough to admit that you do not know. That's your problem. So, theists and atheists are not different. They are the same people putting up an act of being different. A spiritual seeker is neither a theist nor an atheist. He has realized that he does not know, so he is seeking. The moment you believe something, you become blind to everything else. The whole conflict on the planet is not between good and evil as they are trying to project it. It is always one man's belief versus another man's belief. The need for belief is more psychological than spiritual. You want to cling to something, you want to feel secure, you want to feel like you know it all. That's coming from a very immature mind. What is the problem of you do not know anything? about this existence. You actually don't know anything. It's beautiful, and you see how to make yourself beautiful and joyful within yourself, which is within your hands. What is a spiritual experience? Going to ocean or to the mountain and seeking an experience may be beautiful. You must enjoy the world the way it is, but you must understand the fish in the ocean doesn't think it is a spiritual experience, nor does the mountain gods think the mountain is a spiritual experience because they are there all the time. If you bring them to the city, they may think it is a spiritual experience. It is the breaking of the barrier within you. Something broke within you. You were in a shell. This broke and become a bigger shell. What I am saying is, if you get used to the bigger shell, it feels the same way as the previous one. So, if you want to become boundless and you are trying to attempt it through physicality, you are essentially trying to go towards boundlessness in installments. Can you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and one day count to infinity? You will only become endless counting. That is not the way. Through physical means, you can never reach towards boundless nature. Every human being is looking to become boundless. If you give him whatever he wants, for 3 days he is okay. The fourth day he is looking for something else. Somebody may label it as greed. I just say this is life process in the wrong direction. If you want to know boundless nature, you must experience, you must perceive something which is beyond the physical. Something you might have touched when you jumped into the ocean, when you saw a mountain, when you sang a song, when you danced, when you closed your eyes. In so many ways, it could have happened to an individual. You touched it, but now the question is of sustainability. A simple practice. One thing is, we can put you on to something very simple, which is subjective. Any subjective technology cannot be taught to you in uncommitted atmospheres. So, if you are willing to give yourself a small space of time that is very committed and focused, we can put you on a simple practice where investing just 21 minutes a day inner engineering, you can start your day with a very phenomenal spiritual experience within you, a very powerful experience that leaves you peaceful and joyful throughout the day. Apart from that, to sustain it, one simple thing every human being has to do is to make your sense of involvement indiscriminate. If you look at a person, a tree, or a cloud, you are equally involved. You are equally involved with your own body and the breath. If you have no discrimination as to which is better and you are equally involved with every aspect in life, then you will be constantly spiritual. Nobody needs to teach you what is spirituality. Om, om, om. Now we will discuss mind according to Advaita Vedanta. The conception of the mind also known as Antahkarna, varies in the different systems of Indian philosophy as stated below. The Nyaya Vaisesika system considers the mind to be an eternal substance, atomic in size. The Prabhakara school of Purva Mimamsa holds the same view. The Bhatta school of Purva Mimamsa maintains that the mind is all pervasive and is in eternal contact with the all pervasive Atma. That Atma and mind in contact with each other function only within the sphere of the body with which they happen to be associated, and the possibility of several cognitions arising at the same time cannot be ruled out. The Sankhya and Yoga systems consider the mind to be of the size of the body. According to Advaita Vedanta, the mind is a subtle substance Dhruvya. It is neither atomic nor infinite in size, but it is said to be of Madhyama Parinama, medium size, which may be taken to mean that it pervades the body of the particular jiva to which it belongs. The mind of each jiva is different. It has a beginning as is proved by such Shruti statements as it, Brahma, projected the mind, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Vedanta Pribhasha. The mind, which is called internal organ, Antahakaranam, is produced from the sattva part of all the five subtle elements together. It is known by four different names according to the function. The four names are Manas, Buddhi, Chittam, and Ahankara. Sometimes only two names, Manas and Buddhi, are mentioned as in Panchadasi, the other two being included in them. The function of cogitation is known as the manas or mind. When a determination is made, it is known as buddhi or intellect. The function of storing experiences in memory is called chittam. Egoism is ahankara. The word mind is also used to denote the antahakaranam as a whole when these distinctions are not intended. Chandogya Upanishad says the food that is eaten becomes divided into three parts. The grossest part becomes excreta, the medium constituent becomes flesh, the subtlest part becomes mind, antaha karnam. In his Bhashya on this mantra, Sri Sankara says, getting transformed into the mind stuff, the subtlest part of the food nourishes the mind. Since the mind is nourished by food, it is certainly made of matter, but it is not considered to be eternal and partless as held by the Vaisesikas. There is difference of opinion among Advaitins on the question whether the mind is an indriya organ or not. Vachaspati Misra, the author of Bhamati, considers the mind to be an indriya. Prakshatma Muni, the author of Vivarna, takes the view that the mind is not an indriya. The author of Vedanta Pribhasha also takes the same view. This difference is reflected in the different theories held by these two on the question of how self knowledge arises from the Mahavakyas like Tattvam Asi as explained below. According to one theory known as the Prashant Khyana theory attributed to Mandana Misra, the knowledge which arises from the Mahavakya is relational and mediate like any other knowledge arising from a sentence. Such a knowledge cannot apprehend Brahma, which is non relational and immediate aproksha meditation. Parshankyana give rise to another knowledge which is non relational and immediate. It is this knowledge that destroys nescience. In this view, the mind plays an important role in the production of self knowledge. The view of Sureswara is the opposite of the above. Knowledge of Brahma arises directly from the Mahavakyas. Whether the knowledge given by a sentence is mediate or immediate depends on whether the subject matter of the sentence is mediate or immediate. Since Brahma is immediate, the sentence which gives knowledge about it does not produce immediate knowledge. The difference between the two theories is that while according to Sureswara, the knowledge of the self arises from the Mahavakya itself, according to Bahamati, the knowledge of the self arises from the Mahavakya only with the help of the mind. Following the view of Mandana, Vachaspati Misra holds that the mind is the instrument for the attainment of self knowledge. Following the other view stated above, Prakasatman, the author of Vivarna, says that the Mahavakya itself is the instrument, though the knowledge no doubt arises in the mind. The Mahavakya give rise to self knowledge by making the mind take the form of Brahma. This is known as Akhandkara Vivrati. The question arises since Brahma has no form, what is meant by saying that the mind takes the form of Brahma? This is explained by Swami Vidyarna in Jin Jivan Mukti Viveka, chapter 3, by taking an example. In the first place, the word akara in this context should be taken as meaning nature. Otherwise, the terms the form of pleasure, pain, etc. will also be illogical. A pot made of clay is full of the all pervading space as soon as it is made. Filling it afterwards with water, rice, or any other substance is due to human effort. Though the water, etc., in the pot can be removed, the space inside can never be removed. It continues to be there Even if the mouth of the pot is hermetically sealed. In the same manner, the mind, in the act of being born, comes into existence full of the consciousness of the self. It takes on after its birth, due to the influence of virtue and vice, the form of thoughts, clothes, color, taste, pleasure, pain, and other transformations, just like melted copper cast into molds. Of these, the transformations such as color, taste, and the like, which are not self, can be removed from the mind, but the form of the self, which does not depend on any external cause, cannot be removed at all. Thus, when all other ideas are removed from the mind, the self is realized without any impediment. It has been said, one should cause the mind, which by its very nature is ever prone to assume either of the two forms of the self and the not self, to throw into the background the perception of the not self by taking on the form of the self alone, and also the mind takes on the form of pleasure, pain, and the like because of the influence of virtue and vice, whereas the form of the mind in its native aspect is not conditioned by any extraneous cause. To the mind devoid of all transformations is revealed the supreme bliss. Thus, when the mind is emptied of all other thoughts, self knowledge arises. In Mandukya Karika 3.35 is said, the mind loses itself in sleep but does not lose itself when under control. That very mind becomes the fearless Brahma, possessed of the light of consciousness all around. In his Bhashya on Mandukya Karika 3:46, Sri Shankara says, when the mind becomes motionless like a lamp in a windless place, it does not appear in the form of any object imagined outside. When the mind assumes such characteristics, then it becomes Brahma, or in other words, the mind then becomes identified with Brahma. In his Bhashya on Sri Shankara says, a lamp does not flicker when it is in a windless place. Such a lamp is compared to the mind of a yogi whose mind is under control when he is engaged in concentration on the self. From the above three quotations, it is seen that the mind remains dormant in deep sleep, but in concentration on the self, the mind becomes identified with Brahma. The mind, being made of extremely subtle and transparent substance, receives the reflection of the consciousness of the self. Because of this, it appears to be sentient, though it is really inert. All knowledge arises only through an appropriate modification of the mind corresponding to the object of knowledge. Panchadasi, chapter 2, stanza 13 says that it is the mind that examines the merits and defects of the objects perceived through the senses. The conclusion which the mind comes to will depend on the proportion of the three gunas in it at the time. Mind is the cause of bondage as well as of liberation. Amrita Bindu Upanishad Mantra 2 says that the mind is verily the cause of bondage as well as of liberation. Engrossed in objects of sense, it leads to bondage. Free from attachment to objects, the same mind leads to liberation. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 1.5.3 says, desire, resolution, doubt, faith, lack of faith, steadiness, unsteadiness, modesty, knowledge, fear, all these are only forms of the mind. The meaning of this statement is that all these arise in the mind. The mind takes an appropriate vritti when any of these arises. These are known by the witness consciousness as soon as they arise. Without the help of the external sense organs, they are therefore called Sakshi Pratyaksha or perceived by the witness consciousness directly. The mind is the cause of happiness and unhappiness. A person is happy when other living beings or inanimate objects are favorable to him and unhappy when they are unfavorable. A thing or person is considered favorable when that thing or person responds in the way desired. If a son obeys his father, the father is happy. If he does not, the father is unhappy. A person is happy with his car or any other object as long as it functions well. If it does not, he is unhappy and wants to get rid of it. It is thus clear that happiness and unhappiness are only states of the mind but are wrongly thought to be caused by external objects. Happiness is the result of the mind becoming calm. The mind becomes calm temporarily when a particular desire is fulfilled, and then happiness is experienced, but soon another desire crops up and agitates the mind, causing unhappiness. Thus, it is clear that lasting happiness cannot be attained by the fulfillment of the desires. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Eta seva anandasya ani ani bhutani matram upjavanti. All creatures enjoy only a particle of this bliss. The bliss that is the very nature of Brahma. We wrongly think that happiness comes from external objects. All the happiness that we enjoy is only a reflection of Brahmananda in the mind when the mind is calm. Detachment is the key to lasting happiness. True and lasting happiness can result only if the mind is permanently kept calm. This can be achieved only if des- desires, which are the cause of mental agitation, are completely eliminated. We are therefore led to The conclusion that total detachment towards all worldly pleasures, vairagya, is the only means for the attainment of true and lasting happiness, which is Brahmananda. Vairagya is the most essential requisite for a person who wishes to attain self knowledge, which alone will lead to eternal bliss. It is said in Viveka Chodamani that one who attempts to attain self knowledge without cultivating this passion is like a person trying to cross a river on the back of a crocodile, mistaking it for a floating log of wood. He is sure to be eaten up by the crocodile midway. The essential requisite for a spiritual aspirant is purity of mind. There are six enemies of the spiritual aspirants, and all these arise in the mind. These are desire, anger, greed, infatuation, pride, and jealousy. Of these, the first, desire, is the cause of all the other five. That's why so much stress is laid on the rooting out of the desire from the mind. The Chandogya Upanishad explains how the mind can be made pure. Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 7, part 26, stanza 2 says, Ahra Shuddhadu Sattva Shuddhi. From purity of food follows purity of the internal organ, mind. From the purification of the internal organ, unfailing memory results. When memory is attained, all the knots of the heart are cut asunder. Sri Sankara explains this passage thus in his Bhasha. By food is meant all that is enjoyed through the senses. What is meant is that all enjoyments should be free of all defects such as attachment, repulsion, or delusion. When all enjoyments are pure, the internal organ becomes pure. From the purification of the internal organ, there arises continuous memory of the infinite self. Then follows the destruction of all the bonds born of nescience, which had become hardened by the vasanas accumulated over innumerable lives. Therefore, one should ensure that everything that one enjoys is pure. So, my dear friends, I end this video at this state. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar.